Welcome to the November update of the New Haven Willoughby line. I've got a few things to show you since the last update, and one major addition to the new extension that will greatly improve functionality of essentially the end-to-end layout that I have been developing for a long time now, which the extension is a part of. And this new addition to the extension will improve overall functionality much greater. And it's really just one part of a kind of a two-part plan that I have underway. So I'll show you what I've done there and explain the second part, which will be down the road a little bit. And then show you some quick little things that I've been working on. There was one little section that I've been spending most of my time on, so I'll show you that as well. So stick around, happy November, and stay tuned. So this area was essentially the most important part of my whole design for the extension. I really wanted a road underneath train tracks. Pretty simple, but I kind of, when developing the plan, I wanted better operations. I wanted to convert my original looping or looped layout, which is all here. I essentially wanted to convert that to an end-to-end, thus making operations functionality, having a destination, an endpoint, starting point. And so that was the main consideration for the overall track plan. But within the scenery checklist that I had at the top was getting a road underneath the tracks. Initially, I wanted it just a single track, but through my plans, this made the most sense to me. And so the other thing that I had seen on a bunch of different layouts is, I don't know how to describe this properly, but essentially elevation buildings that are either dug into the ground or ground surrounding them to the second floor, sloped roads with buildings that fit into the natural landscape. What I've done over on the original section here is I've got houses, but each one is kind of on its own level. And this one, the road kind of cuts down and you can see like a retaining wall here, which is, kind of what I was going after on this new section. But I want kind of much more of this kind of, again, I don't know how to describe it other than kind of show you, but where the building kind of sits into the ground. And over on this section, there's going to be a lot more of that kind of thing. And not all of it's been figured out yet. I kind of need to get some kits to work through it. I've got this flat section here, and I'm not sure how many structures I'll have going down this slope here, if I'll have any on this section. This kind of was poor planning on my part here. I kind of really wanted the street to be down the middle of buildings. But there's just not enough space too much on here unless I either kit bash or scratch build some very narrow structures, which I still may do. Up here I'll have some structures up here, and I'm not sure exactly what kind of look I'm going for, if I want more of a refined town or city look, or whether I want more of a kind of a farmhouse feel to it, or a mix. My gut's telling me mix at this point, but I'm not sure. I've only got 2 kits so far on this whole table, so or this whole new section, so got a lot to figure out. But I kind of wanted this, not so predictable landscape with buildings and so forth. So I had been working a lot on this section. This is actually a piece of 2x4 that's been set into the section, and it took me quite a long time to get this building laid into there. What I did, I also finished building this kit for the most part. I mean, it obviously needs the roof and details, but I had since the last update, worked on these 2 kits and really worked on getting this ground up to where it needs to be. So what I did is, after I had the kit built, I wrapped it in saran wrap. First I had done wax paper, and then I did saran wrap, or saran wrap as some people call it, and then just laid it where I wanted it to be, and then built the turf around it. It's actually, or the ground around it, it's actually, I think for the most part, Sculptamold underneath. And then I had to also, which took up an evening or two, to sand and Dremel and chisel this part of the 2x4 out so it kind of fit naturally. Once I put the structure in, there's kind of a sidewalk area or a landing here, and then you can kind of walk down the side of the street. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to finish this, if it's going to be gravel, just broken up pavement, concrete sidewalk. I'm not sure yet, so that's yet to be determined. But I've been working, a lot of my time has been going into that one little area. But I think it's starting to take shape. I really like it. I've got some rocks behind there, so I'm going to start building up the turf pretty soon. And then I also worked on this road, which took a couple of nights to lay the plaster, let it dry, and then sand it. And I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to raise the elevation of this whole area in here once I get a kit for it. I probably want it at track level. I'm not exactly sure, and I'm not sure the best way to get things at track level in an easy way. I've used cardboard before, the more expensive route, which I don't like, because when you lay plaster over cardboard, it tends to crack. The other option is the more expensive route is to use cork road bed. I may do like a cork kind of frame and then lay Sculptamold in and smooth it out. That's probably my neatest option. But I'm not exactly sure, and I kind of really need some kits because I'm not sure where this road is going to go to service this siding. And I'm still undecided in this area with all the stuff on here. A part of me still wants to have the option, because I don't have any dock area, and that's kind of a cool feature to have. So I may sink this part down and make it kind of a dock access area here, which kind of might be a neat addition to this area. So I've got a lot of figuring out to do on this new section. I really don't know what to do with this curve. There is going to be an industry here. It's going to have to be somewhat light and minimal because this is the lift out section. So that's a consideration. And that's pretty much it. So let me show you the first part of the 2-part process to make this a fully functional end-to-end the way I see it should be. So stick around and I'll show you that coming up right next. So how I see it is I've got 2 tracks coming out of the yard in the background there, and they come around the back of the table, and they both come through the hillside here. One starts to climb back right as soon as it goes into that first tunnel opening, and they split, and one comes up here and goes over, and the other one stays pretty much at table level, and they both kind of come together here, and the inside one starts to decline, and it's 18-inch radius on a lot of this inside loop. The outside is 22. The grade I think is 2%. I'm not 100% sure. But then they come back together again, and they run again as parallel tracks. So I've got the inner one with the elevation and the outer one, which is just table level, and they both come around and go over the lift out and then come into the industrial area, or the business area, whatever you want to call it. And I kind of want to be able to bypass that elevation in both directions if I want to. The way I've got it now, if I can remember, I think I'm calling this Waterbury Yard, and then this is someplace east towards Boston. So ideally, the way the yard is set up, westbound towards Waterbury would be on the outside track, and so eastbound would be on the inside track, if that makes sense. So I want to be able to bypass that. So what I have in plan is, assuming that I'm coming eastbound, I want to be able to run around a train, so I could have 5 cars that I can essentially drop off and run around, and I don't have that at this point enough. I've got this section here, which does hold, I think it might hold 5, but once I start switching and loading and unloading and maneuvering on this section, the closest section to the end of the table, so I've got this siding, and then this one, it gets a little finicky because I kind of need this track not to be as staging, but to be as either incoming or outgoing. So I really want another runaround, and so if I put a turnout here and then throw another one on the other side of this turnout, I should be able to have another 5-car runaround, which would be awesome. And the problem with that is, initially, if I'm going to use, this is an Atlas turnout, but if I use a Pico, I didn't have really enough room for a locomotive to clear, because the table had initially ended here until yesterday. So it was really close. I don't think it would quite work. So I added this little extension here. It's about 3 inches longer, and I've got a couple of braces underneath, and I'm using scrap, so you can see it doesn't quite go to the edge of the wall there, but that's okay. That will be resolved. The way I have it set up now is, hopefully once I get 2 turnouts, I can put one here, one at the other end, and then I'll have a runaround section. So I could essentially use this new track on the inside as staging. So I could drop a train off there, use a locomotive for something else, but essentially keep it there until I distribute the cars to the various industries on this table. Meanwhile, using the other tracks to set up for something going westbound and leaving this area. So I kind of really need that track to kind of give me multifunctional or better functionality. And the other thing that I'm thinking of is adding a crossover. I may have mentioned this one in the previous update, but having another crossover in this section here. So essentially, it wouldn't matter whether I'm what track I'm leaving on coming out of this new extension area, and then I could switch back over into the outer track, so I wouldn't have to go over that elevation back the other way. Or if I wanted to, I could just come around, and I could go eastbound on the westbound track, if any of that makes sense. I know it's a little confusing. It's confusing for me. But essentially, another crossover in that section and another runaround here, I think will make all of this so much better. So I really needed this extension. The other thing that this little extension does for me is it allows me to bring a locomotive out here and then be able to have 2 cars at a time go into this siding. Otherwise, I would only have room for 1. Now, this is obviously a shorter locomotive. Typically, I use the RS, but with this extension on the table, the RS ones that I have, or the RS3 that I have, will fit. And then I've also got a GP9 and the H1644, if I've got those numbers right. I can never remember that, but the the FM, the Fairbanks Morse, that will also fit on this new extension. My only problem is I don't have the turnouts yet, and I measured as best I could. But in theory, if you can't just start parking a car right at the turnout, you need some clearance for clearance, so the one doesn't hit the other. So depending on how far back I may need to bring this, I may need to extend this a little bit. I've moved the refrigerator a tiny bit, and a tiny bit more, and a tiny bit more. I really can't move it too much farther. I mean, I've got a foot over here, and this is just wasted space. So I guess I could extend the table farther if I wanted, but for other reasons, I really don't want to do that. So hopefully this extension that I put in yesterday will suffice to be sufficient, or be sufficient enough for my usage. But that's it. So enough rambling about that. But that's where I'm at. And then the last thing I did was to paint a good portion of the table and clean up some of the table so I could kind of see things. Oh, there's one more thing that's kind of an important thing that I've discovered and that I wanted to share. I may have mentioned before that I've used, now I can't find it, that's my flux, which is terrible. Now I can't find, this stuff here. The NOAX ID, a special stuff. I had treated the entire yard and this entire table months ago, and it was fantastic. I would run them with a month in between of coming down here. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but everything worked, and it was really great. Then I started to notice I had some problems recently when I was trying to run them, but to be fair to the NOAX, I had done a lot of dust work on here, carving out the rocks, the styrofoam, sanding, Dremel, drilling, sawing, tons of stuff. So I probably got way more dust on everything than I should have. I gave it a thorough cleaning yesterday with a brush and vacuum, and got everything cleaned. And I was noticing when I cleaned the track, I was getting tons and tons of gunk on the rag. So I think, again, the NOAX ID, I think, will last a very long time, but you have to have a pretty dust-free environment, and I totally did not do that. So once I kind of do some of the last bits of scenery, carving out and things, I will probably treat everything with the NOAX ID again. It is easy enough to wipe off. I think there's probably still some residual, but as long as you keep a clean work environment, I think, again, I can attest to the functionality of this. I did, though, have it kind of stop working, but again, I think that's largely or solely my fault for not keeping the track dust free. And this is the space that I've done everything in. So when I'm sawing 2x4s, I do it in here. When I'm dremeling stuff, I do it in here. I don't really have another workspace, so all of that stuff gets in the air. I'm trying to think what else I did. I know carving and sanding the plaster is just ridiculous. Oh, the other thing that I did tons of was drilling, because this table got drilled out a lot. So there was sawdust and all kinds of stuff. So again, I highly recommend the NOAX ID Special A, or A Special. It's great stuff. It's pretty cheap, and it comes in a huge tub, and you don't want to overuse it. I know people have complained about it's not working because of over application. I think I probably added a little bit too much, but I was very well, I can't think of the word, but I didn't use it heavily. So my only reason for saying that I think I may have applied a little bit too much is when I wiped the track off, it was a little thick, and I don't know if that's just the accumulation of the dust and things that kind of contributed to that, or if that was the NOAX. I would tab my finger on it and then wipe a good part of the rails with it and not really reapply. So I think I applied it well. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to share as well. So that's about it for the November update. Thanks for sticking around. This table is starting to come together. And again, you know, you can design all you want in the computer, but until you put it in to actual real life situations, you know, it's just, you got to kind of go through trial and error. And my trial and error was running operations for a little while and realizing I really do need that extra runaround track. It was in my plans. I didn't think I was going to have enough room for it. I didn't want this table to be just all track. But the way I have industries and things laid out here, I think even if I put a 9x9 structure here, I had tentatively been thinking of the Walder's Brick Freight House. Even if I put that there, I still have enough room for that runaround. And I've got this big section in here for something else. I may have a road coming off of this side of the table and servicing this industry, and then servicing a couple of other things in here. Even with that runaround track, I'll still have enough space. So this section is going to be reserved to the probably one industry. And yeah, so I think I'm in good shape. Things are starting to come together. And yeah, so thanks. Happy November, and we'll see you in December. So take care.